The moment Park Jae-won walked into Golden Lotus restaurant, every conversation dropped to a whisper. Ursula Creed noticed it immediately. The soft clinking of chopsticks against ceramic plates. The sudden dip in laughter. The way the hostess's spine straightened as if someone had pulled an invisible string. She had worked here 3 years. She knew what power looked like when it entered a room. But this was different. This wasn't a celebrity or a politician. This was something else entirely. The man wore a charcoal silk suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. His face revealed nothing. Not warmth. Not cruelty. Just control. Like someone who had stopped needing to prove anything a long time ago. Behind him walked 4 men. They scanned the room the way security guards do, looking for threats, exits, problems. Their movements were too casual to be casual. And then his eyes landed on her. Just for a second. Just a flicker. He looked at her the way someone looks at furniture. Present. Unimportant. Beneath notice. Ursula had seen that look before. She knew what it meant. What Park Jae-won didn't know, what he couldn't possibly know, was that Ursula had spent the last 3 years waiting for this exact moment. And in her apron pocket sat a letter that could shatter everything he had built. But first, he was about to make a terrible mistake. Now, before we go any further, I need to ask you something real quick. If you've ever felt overlooked. If you've ever had someone look through you like you didn't exist. If you've ever been underestimated because of how you look, where you come from, or what people assumed about you. This story is for you. And trust me, what happens next is going to hit different. So do me a favor. If you're not subscribed yet, smash that subscribe button right now. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I read every single comment, and I want to know, have you ever been in Ursula's shoes? Have you ever been underestimated? Drop your story below. Let's build this together. Now, let's get back to it. Because Park Jae-won is about to learn a lesson he'll never forget. Ursula was supposed to be off tonight. Her daughter Mina had a cold. The babysitter, Mrs. Kim from apartment 4B, had already stayed late twice this week. Ursula had specifically requested Friday night off. But then Soo-jin, the floor manager, grabbed her arm in the kitchen. The woman's fingers dug in a little too tight. A little too urgent. VIP room 3. You're taking it. Ursula frowned. The smell of frying garlic and sizzling beef filled the cramped kitchen. A chef shouted orders in rapid-fire Korean. I'm not even supposed to be here. I know. But the guest requested an English-speaking server. Something about international business partners coming later. Soo-jin paused. Her eyes darted toward the dining room. Also, this guest is important. Very important. Don't mess it up. Ursula felt something cold settle in her stomach. The kitchen suddenly seemed too loud, too hot. Who is it? Soo-jin hesitated. That hesitation said everything. Just smile. Take the order. Don't speak unless spoken to. And whatever you do, don't make eye contact for too long. Ursula watched Soo-jin walk away. Her hand drifted unconsciously to her apron pocket. Inside, folded and worn at the edges from years of waiting, sat an envelope. The paper had yellowed slightly. The ink had faded. But the words inside remained sharp as the day they were written. She had carried it every shift for 3 years. Tonight, she finally understood why. The VIP room was private. Soundproofed walls. No windows. A single long table with seating for 8. Park Jae-won sat at the head. 4 men flanked him, 2 on each side. They had removed their jackets. Ursula noticed the careful way they positioned themselves, always facing the door. Always watching. One man's sleeve rode up slightly. The holster under his arm wasn't visible, but Ursula knew it was there. She entered with menus. Head slightly bowed. Professional. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but her hands remained steady. Years of practice. Good evening. Welcome to Golden Lotus. My name is Ursula, and I'll be serving you tonight. May I start you with something to drink? Silence. J1 didn't look at her. He was reading something on his phone. The blue light illuminated his face in the dimly lit room. One of his men, younger, sharp jawline, expensive watch, smirked. Then J1 spoke. But not to her. He spoke to his men. In Korean. Look at this. They send a foreigner to serve us. He still didn't look up. I suppose proper service is too much to ask. The men chuckled. A quiet, dangerous sound. Ursula's expression didn't change. Not even a flicker. Not even a blink. Because here's the thing about Ursula Creed. She had lived in Seoul for 12 years. She had been raised by a Korean grandmother. She spoke Korean more fluently than some of the men at this table. And she understood every single word. The younger man, Ursula would later learn his name was Kwon Tae-sung, leaned back in his chair. His chair creaked slightly. His watch caught the light as he gestured toward her. In Korean, he said, she's kind of pretty for a foreigner. Tall. Nice figure. He grinned. Think she understands anything we're saying? Another man laughed. Not a chance. Look at her. Completely clueless. J1 finally looked up. His eyes met Ursula's for exactly 2 seconds. Cold. Calculating. Assessing. Then he spoke slowly, deliberately, in Korean. Let's have some fun with this. Order in Korean. Make her confused. It'll be entertaining. Ursula felt her pulse quicken. Not from fear. From anticipation. Because Park Jae-won had just sealed his own fate. He turned to her and spoke in heavily accented English, as if she were a child. We want food. You understand? Food. She smiled politely. A customer service smile that never reached her eyes. Of course, sir. Take your time with the menu. She stepped back. Hands folded. Face neutral. Inside her pocket, Grandma Yoon's letter felt heavier than ever. The first lesson here? Never underestimate someone based on appearance. Park Jae-won saw a black woman in a service uniform and made instant assumptions. He didn't ask questions. He didn't consider possibilities. He simply decided she was beneath him. This happens every day. In job interviews. In classrooms. In restaurants. And every single day, someone like Ursula is watching. Waiting. Understanding everything. The clock on the wall ticked toward disaster. Jae-won's men continued their game, unaware that every word, every laugh, every dismissive glance was being recorded, processed, and stored. Because underestimation? That's a weapon too. And Ursula Creed was about to use it. The next 30 minutes became a performance. Park Jae-won leaned back in his leather chair, eyes glittering with amusement. The private room hummed with the sound of expensive men enjoying their power. Ice clinked in whiskey glasses. The smell of grilled meat and money filled the air. Let's make this interesting, Jae-won said in Korean, his voice low and smooth like expensive liquor. Order the most obscure dishes. Use dialect. See if she understands anything. The men nodded, exchanging smiles like boys planning a prank. Tae-sung went first. He used Busan dialect, harsh consonants, slurred endings, the kind even many Koreans struggle to understand. Bring the japchae first, he said, deliberately complex. Then the bulgogi. Wait exactly 4 minutes between courses. And make sure the rice comes out steaming, not warm. If it's warm, send it back. They watched Ursula's face like hawks, waiting for the confusion, the embarrassment, the panic. She gave them nothing. Not a furrowed brow. Not a hesitant smile. Not a nervous glance. Instead, she nodded and repeated the order back in English, perfectly translated. Japchae first. Bulgogi second. For minutes between courses. Rice must be steaming. The table went quiet. A fork dropped against a plate with a sharp clink. Jaewon's eyes narrowed slightly. Just slightly. A hairline crack in perfect control. Lucky guess, Taesung muttered. She probably heard those words before. But Ursula saw it. The flicker of doubt. The first seed of suspicion. She filed it away and left to place the order. The door closed behind her with a soft click. One round to her. In the kitchen, Ursula leaned against the wall and exhaled. Her hands were trembling. Not from fear. From restraint. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. A chef yelled orders in the background. The smell of frying garlic and sizzling meat enveloped her. Every word they had said was burned into her memory. The casual cruelty. The assumptions. The laughter. The way they had looked right through her. Have you ever swallowed fire? Held lightning in your palm? That's what it felt like, containing the storm building inside her. Part of her wanted to walk back in right now, drop the letter on the table, and watch the color drain from Park Jae-won's face. To see his perfect control shatter. She touched the letter in her apron pocket. The edges worn soft from 3 years of waiting. But Grandma Yoon had taught her patience. The memory came rushing back, clear as yesterday. Grandma's small kitchen. The smell of kimchi jjigae on the stove. Rain against the window. Revenge is a cold dish, my child, she used to say, her wrinkled hands working rice into perfect balls. Served best when the other person has forgotten they owe it. Ursula closed her eyes and remembered the old woman's face. The wrinkles around her eyes when she smiled. The way her hands shook when she wrote that final letter. No. Not yet. The timing had to be perfect. She straightened her apron. Checked the plates. And prepared to return to the lion's den. When Ursula returned with the first course, something had changed. The energy in the room was different. Tense. Like the moment before lightning strikes. One of the men, older, with a scar near his ear, was on the phone, speaking rapidly in hushed Korean. His shoulders were rigid. His free hand clenched and unclenched. She caught fragments as she approached with steaming plates. Shipment delayed. Busan Port. Inspector Park is asking questions. Jae-won held up a hand. The man stopped talking immediately, mid-sentence. Everyone looked at Ursula. The room went silent except for the soft sizzle of hot plates. She placed the japchae on the table and began to retreat. 1 step. 2. Wait. Jae-won's voice stopped her cold. Not loud. Just absolute. He studied her face. Really studied it this time. Not looking through her anymore, but at her. Where did you learn to work in a Korean restaurant? English this time. Direct. His accent suddenly less pronounced. Ursula kept her expression neutral. Professional. The perfect service mask. I trained in hospitality before moving to Seoul, sir. How long have you been in Korea? A few years. Not a lie. Just incomplete. A dozen years reduced to a few. Jae-won tilted his head. Something flickered behind his eyes. Suspicion? Curiosity? For a second, his mask slipped too. You're Korean, is it good? Ursula allowed herself a small smile. The tiniest crack in her professional veneer. I know enough to get by. Tae-sung laughed. She knows enough to get by. That's cute. But Jae-won didn't laugh. He was still watching her. The way a chess player studies the board after an unexpected move. And Ursula realized something dangerous. Park Jae-won wasn't stupid. He wasn't just another rich man drunk on power and assumptions. He was testing her. The game had changed. And neither of them knew the other's next move. Jae-won's phone rang. The sound cut through the private room like a ghost appearing. Not the usual electronic chime of a smartphone. Not a generic ringtone. It was an old Korean folk song. The kind played on wooden flutes and string instruments. The kind grandmothers hummed while preparing kimchi or hanging laundry. Ursula's breath caught. She knew that song. The melody transported her instantly to a tiny kitchen in Itaewon. Morning sunlight filtering through faded curtains. The smell of doenjang soup simmering. And Grandma Yoon's soft, wavering voice singing as she worked. Every morning. For 12 years. Jae-won answered. His voice changed. The sharp edges disappeared. Softer. Almost vulnerable. Yes. I understand. I'll handle it. 3 sentences. That's all. But they sounded different from anything he'd said all night. He hung up and stood abruptly. The chair scraped against the floor. I need 5 minutes, he told his men. Then he walked out of the VIP room without another word. His men exchanged glances. Tae-sung rolled his eyes. His mother's memorial is next week. He always gets like this. Another man, older, with a scar near his temple, shook his head. Not his mother. The old woman who raised him. The one in Itaewon. Ursula's heart stopped. Time seemed to freeze. They were talking about Grandma Yoon. They were talking about her grandmother. Ursula stepped out of the room under the pretense of checking on the next course. Her mind raced. Her heart hammered. That ringtone. That song. The old woman in Itaewon. It couldn't be coincidence. She found Jae-won standing in the hallway, staring at his phone. Not using it. Just staring at the blank screen, as if looking for answers in the dark glass. His face was different now. Unguarded. Tired. The lines around his mouth deeper. His shoulders slightly hunched. For a moment, he didn't look like a crime boss. He didn't look like the man who had mocked her, who controlled a room with his mere presence. He looked like a lost boy who had run too far to ever find his way home. Then he noticed her. The transformation was instant. Like a mask sliding back into place. His spine straightened. His jaw tightened. His eyes hardened. What are you looking at? His tone was ice again. The vulnerability gone as if it had never existed. Ursula bowed slightly. Apologies, sir. I was just heading to the kitchen. She walked past him. The hallway felt too narrow. Too close. Their shoulders almost brushed. But something made her stop. Maybe it was the song still echoing in her ears. Maybe it was 12 years of watching Grandma Yoon sit by the window every night, waiting for someone who never came. Ursula spoke without turning around. The words came from somewhere deep and true. Grief doesn't get lighter with time. It just gets quieter. She kept walking. One foot in front of the other. Steady. Controlled. Behind her, she heard Jaewon's sharp intake of breath. A tiny sound, like someone touched an unexpected wound. But she didn't look back. When Jaewon returned to the VIP room, something had shifted. The mocking was gone. The casual cruelty. The dismissive glances. Now, he was watching Ursula differently. Every time she entered with a new dish. Every time she spoke. Every movement tracked and analyzed. His eyes followed her like she was a puzzle with missing pieces. Taesung noticed. He leaned forward, voice lowered. "Boss? Everything okay?" Jaewon was quiet for a long moment. The silence stretched. Uncomfortable. Loaded. Then, find out who she is. Taesung blinked. The waitress? Don't question me. Just do it. The words were soft but carried the weight of an order that couldn't be refused. Taesung nodded once. He pulled out his phone and began typing rapidly. Across the room, Ursula delivered the final course with steady hands. Sizzling beef. Steaming rice. Perfect presentation. But inside, she felt the clock ticking. The way Jaewon watched her now. The phone call. The investigation beginning. Her window was closing. Whatever she was going to do, she needed to do it soon. You know what's interesting about grief? It strips away everything false. The power. The position. The persona we show the world. For just a moment in that hallway, Ursula saw past the silk suit and the intimidating presence. She saw a man still carrying wounds from 20 years ago. It doesn't excuse what he'd done. It doesn't make the mockery okay. But it reminds us, everyone is fighting battles we know nothing about. Even the people who seem untouchable. That old Korean folk song was more than music. It was a connection to the past. A thread running between them that neither fully understood. And sometimes, a single thread can unravel everything. Taesung worked fast. His fingers flew across his phone screen, the blue light casting shadows on his sharp features. For all his arrogance, he was efficient, a digital bloodhound who knew how to follow a scent. Within 20 minutes, he had accessed restaurant employee records, cross-referenced social media profiles, and made 2 hushed phone calls that involved more listening than speaking. The other men ate in silence. Forks scraping against plates. Glasses clinking. But the light-hearted mockery from earlier had evaporated like morning dew. Taesung's expression changed subtly. His eyebrows lifted. His lips parted. He found something. He slid his phone across the table to Jaewon. Ursula Creed. American citizen. Moved to Korea at 11 years old. Raised in Itaewon until she was 23. Jaewon's expression didn't change. Not a flicker. Not a twitch. But his jaw tightened. The tiniest muscle movement. Like a fault line shifting before an earthquake. Itaewon. The word hung in the air. Heavy with unspoken meaning. Yes, boss. She lived there for 12 years. Taesung paused, knowing he was delivering news that mattered but not understanding why. There's more. She was listed as the emergency contact for an elderly woman. Yoon Sun-hee. The room went silent. Not the comfortable silence of men enjoying a meal. The silence of oxygen being sucked from the room. The silence before something breaks. Jaewon's hand gripped the edge of the table so hard his knuckles turned white. The veins in his wrist stood out like rivers on a map. Get out. The men looked at each other. Confused. Uncertain. All of you. Get out. Now. They scrambled to obey. Chairs scraping. Napkins dropped. No questions asked. In 30 seconds, Jae-won was alone. And for the first time in 20 years, Park Jae-won felt fear. Not the calculating caution that had kept him alive in a dangerous world. Real fear. The kind that tastes like copper and feels like ice in your veins. Ursula was in the kitchen when the four men walked out of VIP room 3. She noticed immediately. The abrupt exit. The tense shoulders. The rushed pace. They moved differently now. Urgent. Tense. Like men evacuating a building about to collapse. Tae-sung stopped beside her. Close enough that she could smell his expensive cologne. Close enough to be intimidating. Boss wants to see you. Alone. Ursula's pulse quickened. A drummer beating faster inside her chest. But she kept her face calm. Years of practice hiding what she really thought. Is there a problem with the service? Tae-sung studied her with new eyes. No longer dismissive. Now suspicious. Calculating. Like she had suddenly transformed from furniture into a potential threat. I don't know. Is there? He walked away without waiting for an answer. His footsteps faded down the hallway. Ursula stood in the kitchen for exactly 10 seconds. The hum of the refrigerator. The sizzle of oil. The rhythmic chopping of vegetables. She thought about Mina at home. About Mrs. Kim waiting, probably asleep on the couch by now. About the life she had built from nothing, the apartment with the leaky faucet, the second-hand furniture, the stack of children's books by the bed. She thought about running. Walking out the back door. Disappearing. But she also thought about Grandma Yoon. About the letter that had lived in her pocket for 3 years. About the promise she had made to a dying woman. About waiting for this exact moment. She straightened her apron. Adjusted her collar. Took one deep breath. And she walked toward VIP room 3. The door was open. Just slightly. A sliver of light spilled into the hallway. Ursula paused. Listened. No voices. No movement. She pushed the door open wider. Jae-won was gone. The table was abandoned. Half-eaten food cooling on plates. Chairs pushed back at odd angles, as if the men had left in a hurry. A glass of water tipped over, forming a small puddle on the expensive tablecloth. But on the table, in front of where Jae-won had been sitting, was a single item. A photograph. Ursula walked closer. Her shoes silent on the plush carpet. She picked it up. Her heart stopped. It was a photo of Grandma Yoon's apartment building. Not old. Recent. Maybe taken in the last week. The familiar peeling green paint. The potted plants on the balconies. The laundry hanging to dry. And written on the back, in neat, precise handwriting she somehow knew was Jae-won's. I should have come home. Ursula's hands trembled. The photograph blurred as tears filled her eyes. He knew. He had always known. He hadn't forgotten or moved on. He hadn't become so important that the past didn't matter. He had been living with the guilt this entire time. Ursula found him on the rooftop. The door creaked as she pushed it open. Cold night air rushed against her face. The distant hum of traffic rose from below like the breathing of a sleeping giant. It was employees only. Fire exit access. A concrete slab with ventilation units and cigarette butts. Technically off limits to guests. But Park Jae-won wasn't the kind of man who followed rules. He stood at the edge, looking out over Gangnam's glittering skyline. Seoul Tower lit up in the distance. Skyscrapers like jewels against the night. His suit jacket was off. His sleeves rolled up. The polished veneer stripped away. He looked smaller somehow. Less like a crime boss. More like a man carrying decades of regret. He spoke without turning around. His voice carried on the night breeze. You knew. This whole time. You knew exactly who I was. It wasn't a question. Ursula stepped closer. Gravel crunched under her shoes. Yes. And you waited. 3 years. Working here. Just waiting for me to walk in. Yes. Finally, he turned. The man who had looked through her earlier now looked at her with unveiled pain. His eyes were red. Not crying. But close. The mask completely gone. Why? The word hung between them. Simple. Devastating. Ursula reached into her apron pocket and pulled out the letter. The envelope was slightly yellowed. Worn at the edges from being carried for so long. Because she asked me to. Jae-won stared at the envelope like it might catch fire. That's her handwriting. Yes. Ursula held it out. The breeze tried to take it. She kept her grip firm. She wrote it 2 weeks before she died. She made me promise I would give it to you in person. Jae-won didn't take it. His hands remained at his sides. His jaw worked. Swallowing emotion. I can't. You have to. You don't understand. His voice cracked. The sound of ice breaking on a frozen river. I left her. I said I would come back and I never did. 23 years. I sent money but I never. He stopped. Breathed. I was ashamed. I became something she would never recognize. Something she would never forgive. A police siren wailed in the distance. The city continued its rhythm below them. Ursula's voice softened. You're wrong about that. She pressed the letter into his hands. Not asking permission. Not waiting for him to be ready. She never stopped waiting for you. Not once. Every night, she would sit by the window and ask if her little dragon had come home yet. Jae-won's hands shook. Little dragon? The nickname hit him like a physical blow. His shoulders curved inward. That's what she called you. Because of the bruise on your back. The night she found you. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The rooftop was silent except for the wind and distant traffic. A helicopter passed overhead, its searchlight sweeping across buildings. Then, slowly, Park Jae-won, one of the most feared men in Seoul, opened the letter. And began to read. I need to pause here for just a moment. Because this story isn't really about a crime boss and a waitress. It's about second chances. It's about the people who wait for us when we don't deserve it. It's about the guilt we carry when we think it's too late. Maybe you've been there. Maybe there's someone in your life you've been meaning to call. Someone you've been putting off because you don't know what to say. If this story is hitting home for you, let me know in the comments. Tell me your story. Tell me where you're watching from. And if you haven't subscribed yet, smash that subscribe button right now. Not for me. But because there's a part 2 to this story that you absolutely cannot miss. What's in that letter? What choice will Jae-won make? And what secret is Ursula still hiding? We're just getting started. Now, let's continue. The letter was short. The rooftop wind tried to take it. Jae-won turned his back to the breeze, protecting the paper like it was made of gold. Grandma Yoon's handwriting was shaky. Barely legible in places. The penmanship of someone whose body was failing but whose mind remained clear. But the words were clear. My little dragon. I know you think you've gone too far. I know you think there's no road back. But I need you to know something. I never stopped loving you. Not for one single day. I don't care what you've done. I don't care who you've become. You are still the boy I found bleeding in the alley. You are still the child who called me Humiliate. I'm leaving you something. It's with Ursula. She's like a daughter to me. She'll explain. Please. Come home. Even if it's just once. Your grandmother. Yoon Sun Hee. Jae-won's face remained still. Too still. Like a man afraid that any movement might shatter him completely. He folded the letter carefully. Precise creases. Deliberate movements. A man regaining control one gesture at a time. Then he looked at Ursula. What did she leave me? Ursula hesitated. The city lights reflected in her eyes. The wind tugged at loose strands of her hair. Something that could change everything. But I need to know something first. What? The man in that room tonight. The one who mocked me. Who assumed I was nothing. She stepped closer. Not intimidated anymore. Equal ground. Is that who you really are? Or is that a mask? Jae-won was silent for a long time. The question hung between them. More than words. A choice. Then, I don't know anymore. 3 words. Honest in a way nothing else had been. The admission seemed to surprise him as much as her. The rooftop fell silent again. But something had shifted between them. The waitress and the crime boss were gone. Now it was just Ursula and Jae-won. 2 orphans raised by the same grandmother. Standing on a rooftop with a city below and stars above. And a choice to make. The night air was cold. Seoul and autumn had teeth, a sharp bite that found its way through clothing. Ursula pulled her cardigan tighter and sat on an old crate near the rooftop edge. The metal ventilation units hummed behind them. A neon sign from the building across the street cast everything in a soft red glow. Grandma Yoon saved my life, she said quietly. I was 11. Abandoned. Waiting for a social worker who never came. She found me on the stairwell and brought me inside. Jae-won remained standing. His posture stiff. But he listened without interrupting. I didn't speak Korean. She didn't speak English. But she made me rice and put a blanket around my shoulders. Ursula smiled at the memory. The next morning, she handed me a notebook and pointed at objects. Table. Chair. Bowl. That's how it started. The city stretched below them. Endless lights. Lives stacked upon lives. She taught me Korean. She taught me how to cook. She taught me that family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up. Her voice wavered slightly. When she got sick, I was the one who took her to the hospital. I was the one who sat with her at 3 a.m. when she couldn't sleep. I was there when she stopped. The words caught in her throat. Jae-won finished the sentence quietly. When she died. Yes. Silence fell between them. Not uncomfortable. The silence of shared understanding. Then Jae-won asked the question that had been burning since the rooftop. His voice carefully neutral. She raised 2 orphans. You and me. He paused. Did she ever compare us? Ursula almost laughed. Almost. Every day. She used to say you were the brave one and I was the careful one. She said you had fire in your heart. She said I had patience. The corner of J1's mouth twitched. Almost a smile. Then it vanished. Was she disappointed? In what I became? Ursula looked him directly in the eyes. She was worried. But never disappointed. Not once. Ursula reached into her cardigan pocket and pulled out a small key. It caught the red neon light. Ordinary. Unremarkable. The kind that opened thousands of locks across the city. Before she died, Grandma Yoon gave me this. Jae-won frowned. What does it open? A safety deposit box. Korea First Bank. Itaewon branch. The wind picked up. Papers from the restaurant below swirled in a small eddy near the rooftop door. What's inside? Ursula hesitated. This was the moment. The real reason she had waited 3 years. Carried a letter. Learned to serve tables in an upscale restaurant frequented by the powerful. Evidence. Records. From 20 years ago. Before you were, this. She gestured vaguely at him. Documentation of everything that was done to you. The people who hurt you. The system that failed you. Jae-won's face went pale. The composed crime boss vanished. For a moment, he looked like the teenager who had been beaten and left for dead. How did she? She never stopped protecting you. Even when you didn't know it. Ursula held out the key. This was her gift. A choice. What choice? You can use this to protect yourself. To buy leverage against people who might come after you. Or. She paused. You can use it to finally tell the truth. To stop running. Jae-won stared at the key like it might burn him. The city continued below them. Cars honking. People walking. Lives unfolding in thousands of windows. Why would she give me that choice? Ursula's answer was soft. Because she believed you would make the right one. Jae-won's phone buzzed. The sound shattered the moment. Reality intruding. He glanced at the screen. His face hardened. The vulnerability disappeared like a door slamming shut. I have to go. Now? There's a problem. The shipment I mentioned. It's... He stopped himself. The crime boss returned. Compartmentalizing. Calculating. You don't need to know. Ursula stood. The crate scraped against concrete. So that's it? You're just going to walk away? Again? The words hung in the air. An accusation. A challenge. Jae-won paused at the rooftop door. His hand on the handle. I'm not walking away. I'm buying time. He looked back at her. Meet me tomorrow. 10 a.m. The old apartment in Itaewon. Grandma Yoon's building. It's been demolished. No. It hasn't. His expression was unreadable. I bought it. 3 years ago. I couldn't let them tear it down. Ursula's breath caught. You bought her building? The question remained unanswered. But Jae-won was already gone. The door swung closed behind him with a metallic click. Ursula stood alone on the rooftop. The key felt heavy in her palm. Tomorrow would change everything. Ursula got home at midnight. The apartment building was quiet except for the faint hum of the old refrigerator and water running through pipes in the walls. Her key turned in the lock with a soft click. Mina was asleep on the couch, one small arm dangling over the edge. Mrs. Kim snored lightly in the armchair beside her, an open magazine across her lap. The television flickered with muted commercials, casting blue shadows across the small living room. Ursula stood in the doorway and watched her daughter breathe. 6 years old. Bright. Curious. Hair in messy braids that would need redoing in the morning. The reason Ursula worked double shifts. The reason she stayed in Korea. The reason she couldn't afford to make mistakes. The floor creaked as she crossed the room. She gently lifted Mina, feeling the warm weight of her daughter against her chest. So small. So trusting. She carried her to the bedroom they shared, a single mattress for Ursula and a child's bed for Mina, separated by a nightstand with a lamp missing its shade. Mommy? Shoo. Go back to sleep, baby. Mina's eyes opened halfway, unfocused and sleepy. Did something happen tonight? Ursula paused. The question hung in the air. Why do you ask? You smell different. Like outside. Children notice things adults miss. The smallest details. The things we think we hide. Ursula smiled softly. I was on the roof for a little while. At work. Mina yawned, her small hand reaching up to touch Ursula's cheek. Was it pretty? The sky? It was complicated. Mina didn't understand what that meant. She just nodded and drifted back to sleep, her breathing deep and even. Ursula sat on the edge of the bed for a long time. The distant sounds of the city filtered through the thin walls. A car horn, voices from the street, someone's television one floor down. She thought about the key in her pocket. About J1. About Grandma Yoon. About the life she'd built, balanced on the edge of a knife. At 1:47 a.m., Ursula's phone rang. The sound cut through the darkness, harsh and electronic. She'd been sitting at the kitchen table, unable to sleep. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. The phone vibrated against the Formica tabletop, screen glowing blue in the darkness. Outside, rain had started to fall, pattering against the window in irregular beats. But something made her pick up. Hello? Silence on the other end. Just breathing. Then a male voice. Not J1. Younger. Cold. Ursula Creed. A statement, not a question. Her name in a stranger's mouth. Who is this? You had a conversation tonight. With someone important. That conversation concerned certain people. Ursula's blood ran cold. She glanced toward the bedroom where Mina slept. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie. It's unbecoming. A pause. The sound of traffic in the background. The letter. We know about it. We know what it says. And we know about the key. Ursula's hand tightened on the phone. The plastic case creaked under her grip. What do you want? Tomorrow morning. Before your meeting. We'll be in touch. The line went dead. Ursula sat in the darkness, heart pounding against her ribs like something trying to escape. She looked toward the bedroom door. At her daughter's sleeping face just visible in the strip of light from the street. And she realized this was no longer just about delivering a message. Someone else was playing this game. And her daughter was now in the crossfire. Ursula didn't sleep that night. The kitchen clock ticked. Pipes knocked in the walls. The refrigerator hummed, then went silent, then hummed again. She sat at the kitchen table with a cup of cold tea, staring at the key in her hand. Small. Ordinary. Heavy with consequence. Rain streaked the windows, distorting the neon signs from the convenience store across the street. She could run. Take Mina. Go back to America. Forget the letter, forget J1, forget all of it. That was the safe choice. The mother's choice. Outside, a siren wailed, then faded. A neighbor's door slammed. The building settled around her. But running meant breaking a promise. The last promise she'd made to the woman who had saved her. Who had given her a home when the world had forgotten she existed. Promise me you'll find him, Ursula. Promise me you'll give him a chance to come home. Grandma Yoon's voice. Clear in her memory. The hospital room. The smell of antiseptic. The rhythmic beeping of machines. Or she could finish what she started. For Grandma Yoon. For the woman who had given her a home when no one else would. By 5 a.m., the rain had stopped. The first gray light of dawn seeped through the windows. And Ursula had made her decision. She called Mrs. Kim. The old woman answered on the fourth ring, voice thick with sleep. I need you to take Mina somewhere safe. Just for today. Don't tell anyone where you're going. There was a pause. Mrs. Kim didn't ask questions. She'd lived long enough to know when questions were dangerous. My sister's place in Incheon? Perfect. I'll bring her over in an hour. Then Ursula got dressed. Black jeans. Comfortable shoes. A jacket with inside pockets. She tucked the key into her bra. The safest place she could think of. And she went to meet her past. The building looked exactly the same. Ursula stood on the street corner at 9:45 a.m., staring at the faded brick facade. Morning sunlight caught the edges of the structure, highlighting cracks that had been there for decades. A convenience store occupied the ground floor now, its bright signs a stark contrast to the weathered building above. But the bones remained. The balcony where Grandma Yoon used to grow vegetables in mismatched pots. The stairwell where Ursula had first been found, clutching a backpack with everything she owned inside. The peeling green paint on the railings that no one had bothered to fix in 20 years. 20 years of memories lived in those walls. She walked inside. The entryway smelled exactly as it had when she was 11. Old wood. Cooking oil that had seeped into the walls from neighbors who were long gone. Something floral that might have been cleaning solution or might have been memory. Her footsteps echoed on the concrete stairs. 3rd floor. The elevator had never worked, not once in all the years she lived here. Apartment 3B. Grandma Yoon's door. Ursula's hand hovered for a moment. Her heart pounding against her ribs. She knocked. 3 short taps. The way she always had. The sound of footsteps inside. A lock turning. The door opened. Park Jae-won stood on the other side. His silk suit replaced by a simple black sweater. His eyes tired but alert. And he wasn't alone. Tae-sung stood behind Jae-won. Along with 2 other men Ursula recognized from the restaurant. The one with the scar near his temple. The one who had laughed the loudest at Jae-won's jokes. Her stomach dropped. Like stepping off a cliff. You set me up. The words came out flat. Cold. A statement, not a question. Jae-won's expression was unreadable. Come inside. We need to talk. About what? About how you're going to take the key and pretend this never happened. It's not what you think. Then explain. A neighbor's door opened down the hall. An elderly man peered out curiously. Jae-won stepped aside. Inside. Now. Before someone sees you. Ursula hesitated. She thought about the phone call. About Mina, safely away with Mrs. Kim. About 3 years of waiting. But she had come too far to stop now. She stepped inside. The apartment was exactly as Grandma Yoon had left it. The worn couch with the crocheted blanket. The small television. The framed photos on the wall, including one of Ursula at her high school graduation. The shrine in the corner with incense still burning, fresh flowers placed before a photograph of Grandma Yoon. The scent of ginger and garlic lingered, as if someone had been cooking her recipes. Ursula's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. You preserved it. I couldn't let it go. Jaewon's voice was quiet. She was the only person who ever believed I could be different. Taesung cleared his throat. Boss. We don't have much time. Jaewon nodded. Last night, after I left the restaurant, we were followed. Someone knows about the letter. About the key. About the safety deposit box. Ursula's jaw tightened. I know. They called me. Jaewon's eyes widened. They contacted you directly? At 2 a.m. They threatened my daughter. The temperature in the room changed. Something shifted in Jaewon's expression, a hardness, a focus. He turned to Taesung. Find out who. Now. Taesung moved to the kitchen, phone already at his ear. He made 3 calls in rapid succession. Spoke in hushed Korean too fast for Ursula to follow completely. Each call shorter than the last. Then his face went pale. Boss, it's Chairman Kong. Jaewon's hands curled into fists. Kong. He's supposed to be an ally. Apparently, he's been planning a move for months. The evidence in the safety deposit box, it implicates his family too. He can't let it surface. Ursula watched the men exchange glances. The tension in the room palpable, like static before lightning. Who is Chairman Kong? Construction. Real estate. Politics. Jaewon's voice was tight. The man who built half of Gangnam and owns the other half. The man who... He stopped himself. The man whose family ordered the beating that nearly killed me. The beating that led me to Grandma Yoon's doorstep. Ursula stepped forward. So what do we do? Jaewon looked at her for a long moment. His eyes traveled over her face, searching for something. Trust? Fear? Weakness? Then he made a decision. We go to the bank. Together. We open the box. And we make copies of everything. Then what? Then we give Chairman Kong a choice. The same choice Grandma Yoon gave me. He paused. Walk away clean. Or face the truth. Ursula studied his face. And if he doesn't walk away? Jaewon's jaw tightened. Then we release everything. And we both disappear. One of the men by the door shifted uncomfortably. Boss, you can't be serious. This woman is Grandma Yoon's daughter as much as I was her son. Jaewon cut him off. And her child has been threatened. This ends today. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The apartment was quiet except for the soft ticking of the clock on the wall, the same clock that had hung there for 20 years. Then Ursula reached out her hand. Partners? Jaewon hesitated. In his entire life, he had never trusted anyone. Not fully. Trust was weakness. Trust got you killed. His men watched. Their faces showing confusion. Concern. But this woman, this stranger who had waited 3 years, who had carried a letter across oceans and time, she was offering him something he didn't deserve. A second chance. He took her hand. Partners. His palm was warm against hers. Calloused in places a businessman's hands shouldn't be. Taesung checked his watch. The bank opens in 15 minutes. Jaewon nodded. We'll take separate cars. Ursula with me. You follow with the others. He turned to Ursula. The key? She reached into her jacket and pulled it out. Small. Ordinary. The weight of decades in a piece of metal. Let's finish what she started, she said. J1 looked around the apartment one last time. At the photos. The shrine. The home that had saved them both. For Grandma Yoon. Korea First Bank. Itaewon Branch. Saturday afternoon. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, casting rectangles of light across marble floors. The bank smelled of polish and paper and wealth. A place where secrets lived in numbered boxes. Ursula and Jaewon walked in together. No bodyguards. No backup. Tae-sung and the others waited outside, watching for Chairman Kang's men. Just two people carrying 20 years of secrets between them. Their footsteps echoed against the marble. A security guard looked up, then away. A teller paused mid-count. Power recognized power. The safety deposit box was in the basement vault. Box 847. Grandma Yoon had been paying for it since 1999. Monthly fees from her small pension. Never missing a payment. The bank manager, a nervous man named Mr. Park, led them down. His keycard beeped at 3 different security points. His hand trembled slightly. "This box hasn't been accessed in 23 years, he said. "Are you sure you want to open it today?" The vault door stood open. Heavy steel. Walls of numbered boxes. The air cooler here. Still. Jaewon looked at Ursula. Something passed between them. Understanding. Resolve. She nodded. "We're sure." Inside the box. Photographs. Old ones. Polaroids with dates written in the margins. A teenage boy with bruises on his face. Police officers standing over him. The same officers later accepting envelopes from a man in an expensive suit. Documents. Reports. Medical records. Statements that were never filed. Names circled in red ink. Connections mapped out in Grandma Yoon's neat handwriting. A cassette tape. Small. Unlabeled. And one more letter. Sealed. Addressed to no one. Jaewon picked up the photographs with trembling hands. His face reflected in the polished steel drawer. She documented everything. Every time I was hurt. Every time the system failed. His voice was barely audible. A whisper in the vault. She was building a case. All these years. Ursula picked up the cassette tape. It felt light. Fragile. Ancient technology holding something precious. "What's on this?" "I don't know." But they both knew they would have to listen. Mr. Park hovered nervously at the vault entrance. "Will you be needing anything else?" Jaewon looked up. "A cassette player. Do you have one?" The man blinked. "I might. In storage." "Find it." They found an old player in the bank's storage room. Dust-covered, forgotten in a box of obsolete equipment. Mr. Park plugged it in with an apologetic smile. "I'm not sure if it still works." The small room was cramped. File cabinets. A desk. No windows. Just Ursula and Jaewon, standing close enough to feel each other's breathing. Jaewon pressed play. Static. Hissing. Then. The tape crackled to life. Grandma Yoon's voice filled the room. Wavering. Soft. But clear. "My children. If you are hearing this, then you have finally found each other. I always knew you would. I kept these records not for revenge, but for truth. The world told you both that you were worthless. That you would never amount to anything. That you were mistakes. They were wrong. You are my legacy. Both of you. The boy who burned too bright. And the girl who loved too deep. I don't ask you to forget what was done. I only ask you to choose what comes next. Be brave. Be kind. And never stop believing that people can change. I love you. Always. Your grandmother. The tape ended. The whir of the machine stopped. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Outside the storage room, the bank continued its Saturday business. People making deposits. Withdrawals. Lives continuing. Inside, time stood still. Ursula's eyes were wet. Jaewon's jaw worked silently. 2 orphans. 1 grandmother. 23 years apart. And now, a choice. Chairman Kong never made his move. Jaewon sent him the photographs. All of them. Not through an intermediary. Not with threats or posturing. Just truth, delivered in a plain envelope to Kang's office. With a simple message, walk away. Or this goes public. Kong walked away. The evidence stayed buried. For now. But something else changed. Jaewon stepped back from his empire. Not all at once. Not dramatically. But gradually. He promoted men who had consciences. He closed operations that hurt innocent people. He sold properties. Liquidated assets. Redirected funds. And he started something Grandma Yoon had always dreamed of. A youth shelter in Itaewon. 4 orphans. 4 runaways. 4 kids like he used to be. He named it Yoon's Home. 6 months later. Ursula stood on the balcony of Grandma Yoon's apartment building. The same balcony where vegetables used to grow. Now replanted with peppers and green onions and the herbs Grandma used to love. Seoul sprawled before her. The mountains in the distance. The city that had broken her and made her. Given her everything and taken so much. Mina played in the courtyard below, chasing pigeons and laughing. Her Korean now fluent. She belonged here in a way Ursula hadn't at her age. The door behind Ursula opened. Jaewon stepped out. He looked different now. Lighter. Still guarded. Still careful. But not as cold. The silk suits replaced by simpler clothes. The entourage gone. The shelter opens next week, he said. I was hoping you might consider helping run it. Ursula raised an eyebrow. You're offering me a job. I'm offering you a home. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she smiled. Grandma Yoon would have liked that. Below them, Mina called up. Mommy. Uncle Dragon. Watch me. They both looked down. Watched her spin in circles until she collapsed in dizzy laughter. She would have loved that too, Jaewon said softly. And for the first time in 23 years, he was exactly where he was supposed to be. No matter how far you've gone down the wrong path, you can always turn around. Found family is real family. Grandma Yoon wasn't related to either of them by blood. But she loved them more fiercely than anyone. She saw 2 lost children and made them her own. And even after death, she brought them back together. Who is your Grandma Yoon? Who has loved you when you didn't deserve it? Think about them today. Call them. Visit them. Tell them what they mean to you. Because time doesn't wait. And neither do the people who matter. And that, my friends, is the end. But not really. Because stories like this one don't just live on screen. They live in us. In the choices we make. In the people we become. If this story meant something to you, if it made you think about someone you love, someone you've lost, or someone you need to forgive, I want to hear about it. Drop a comment right now. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me your story. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Smash that subscribe button. Join this community. Let's keep telling stories that matter. Because you being here, it means everything. Thank you for watching until the end. I'll see you in the next one.